When did you do the wrong thing for the right reasons? Our school had zero tolerance for physical contact between students. My autistic little brother went to the same high school in the special ed program. When he had sensory overloads, he needed deep pressure hugs to regulate. Without them, his meltdowns lasted hours instead of minutes. And at school, I couldn't touch him because of the rule. I tried teaching him coping strategies that didn't involve touch. We practiced breathing exercises, bought him a weighted vest, tried everything the occupational therapist suggested. But nothing worked as well as the pressure hugs he'd relied on his whole life. I started meeting him in the special ed room during his lunch to check on him, watching for signs of overload so I could alert his aide before things got bad. His aide was this older woman who meant well but didn't understand autism at all. She'd try to calm him by talking louder, which made everything worse. She'd turn the lights on full brightness because she thought he needed to see clearly, not understanding that fluorescent lights made him feel like his skin was burning. When he started rocking or flapping his hands, she'd tell him to have quiet hands and try to physically stop him from stimming, which just accelerated his meltdowns. I wrote out detailed instructions for what my brother needed, but the aide said she had her own training and didn't need advice from a teenager. I tried talking to the special ed coordinator, but she said they had protocols and couldn't make exceptions. My parents had fought this battle so many times they'd given up, exhausted from years of IEP meetings that changed nothing. My brother was regressing from the constant stress of school. He'd started hitting himself during meltdowns, something he hadn't done since he was 7, leaving bruises on his temples that made me sick to see. He'd lost 10 pounds because he couldn't eat when he was anxious, and he was anxious every single day knowing he'd have to face school without the one tool that helped him cope. What was really awful was that my brother knew I was right there in the same building but couldn't help him. He'd cry for me during his meltdowns, saying my name over and over, and the aide would tell him I was in class and couldn't come. She'd report this to my parents as attention-seeking behavior, rather than recognizing it as a genuine need for the one person who knew how to help him. Some days I could hear him screaming from my classroom 2 hallways away, and I'd have to sit there pretending to focus on algebra while my brother's world fell apart. During state testing week, the schedule was different, and my brother's routine was completely disrupted. I knew it would be bad, so I'd warned his aide that he'd need extra support. She said she had it handled and told me to focus on my own tests. About halfway through my English exam, I heard screaming from down the hall that I recognized immediately as my brother. It wasn't his normal upset sound, but the high-pitched keening that meant he was hurting himself. I asked to use the bathroom and instead went to the special ed room. My brother was on the floor, slamming his head against the tile while the aide stood there telling him to stop. His forehead was already bleeding, and he was making this keening sound that meant he was completely gone into panic mode. 2 other aides were trying to physically restrain him, which was making him fight harder, his arms pinned while his head was still free to slam against the floor. They'd cleared the other kids out, but I could see them watching through the door window, terrified. One little girl was crying, and I recognized her as another autistic student who was probably about to melt down from the chaos. I pushed past the aide and dropped to the floor next to my brother. I said his name low and steady, the way he needed to hear it, and his eyes found mine through the blood running down his face. He reached for me, sobbing, and I knew I had maybe seconds before he started hurting himself again. I wrapped him in the tightest hug I could manage, applying pressure across his back and shoulders exactly how he needed it, the way I'd done 1,000 times at home. He went limp against me, his breathing starting to sync with mine. I held him like that while the aide yelled at me about the no contact rule, about liability, about protocol. Within 3 minutes, my brother was calm. The bleeding on his forehead had stopped being fresh, though his face was still covered in blood. He was humming quietly, the first 4 notes of a song our mom used to sing, which meant he was